on particular aspects of Hyderabad they have either experienced, as Ismat ma'am just told us, or have researched and written about it. So I'm happy to present to you Daneesh Majid, whom many of you may already know. He concentrates on South Asian culture, security, and Urdu literature, and he has worked for Siyasat.com, the online English edition of the prominent Urdu daily, which we all know about, of course. His writing has been featured in numerous South Asian media outlets, including Mint Lounge, Hindu Business Line, Express Tribune, New Indian Express, etc. He's an alumnus of Franklin and Marshall College, Pennsylvania, and the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. And he will be talking about his, about excerpts, I think, from his first book, from one of his books, his latest book, sorry, The Hyderabadis, from 1947 to the present day. Voilà. Okay, so over to you, Daneesh.
Awesome, thank you. Am I audible? Awesome. So good to see some familiar faces in the audience and some people I haven't seen in a while, including the photographer. So the talk is titled The Hyderabadis, From Police Action to the Present Day, Through the Eyes of Its People and a Few Landmarks. किताब का टाइटल असल में था लेकिन from 1947 to the present day, but police action is not terminology that's very well known among people outside Hyderabad. So I'll start. So during 1947 and 1948, there was a 3-act tragedy, which is very much the analogy used to describe what went on in that time by A.G. Noorani. Has anybody read The Destruction of Hyderabad by A.G. Noorani? Let me see a show of hands. Just one person. So within the prologue of that book, he says the 1948 police action is the 3rd act of the tragedy that engulfed the Indian subcontinent during 47-48. The first act was the Punjab, Bengal, and North India riots. A lot of violence, human displacement taking place, and large-scale migration. The second was the first Indo-Pak War, which was fought over Jammu and Kashmir. The origins of that specific war are debated, whether it was the tribals or certain other internal stakeholders of Jammu and Kashmir. And police action. First off, I want to show of hands, and don't be shy. Won't be no judgment here. How many see police action as a liberation? How many see it as an invasion? Wow. How many see it as an integration? There you go. So, as we know, discourse around this 3rd act of this tragedy, it's been very prominent as of late. Has anybody seen the movie Razakar? Wow. Oh, only one person. So, and GHMC ke elections jo 2020 mein hue, those elections tinged with rhetoric about what happened during 1948. You had a certain minister calling KCR new Nizam of the present day. So the rhetoric around this event has become very polarized. The ruled Hindu versus the ruler Muslim. That's how people have been seeing it these days. But I think there's just been more nuance to it. That's why I'm more of the integration point of view. A violent yet necessary integration. Let me just put it that way. So, but police action, as we know, it can't be looked at as an isolated incident. For instance, before the 1948 police action, a communist uprising had already occurred. Telugu mein isko bola jata hai Telangana Sayuda Poratam. And many, especially from the left-leaning factions of Hyderabad, they see the police action as a result of what was going on in the districts of Telangana. An armed uprising against the feudal lords And the first level of those feudals, they weren't Muslims, they were Hindus. Raos, Reddys, Jagirdar jo bolte the unna. They were ultimately among the co-opted factions of the Asafjahi establishment, because you couldn't have ruled over and extracted labor from mostly a Hindu population in the district without having a few Hindu landlords do your bidding for it. Then, what comes after 1948, 7 years later, after the accession of the princely state to India? It's the linguistic division of Hyderabad. 56 में Andhra Pradesh form हुआ था, but उससे 3 साल पहले a separate Andhra state had already been formed due to Putti Sri Ramalu's efforts that led to death. And Kurnool was the first capital of that new state. But the Andhra population, they were in need of a city, a good capital city. Madras to haath se nikal gaya because Tamilians weren't about to let them have that. No way. So, baithe bithaaye, Hyderabad mil gaya un logon ko. And the Telugu-speaking portions of Hyderabad were merged with Andhra state. Then, between 56 and 69, does anybody know 52 mein kya hua tha? Ek agitation. There you go. Thank you, sir. What were you saying, ma'am? Well, towards more it's 1969, but glad you mentioned that. But the mulki go back. Kya naare lagte the pe wahan pe? Idli sambar go back. Kyunki idli sambar jo aaj dekhte hum log, all these Udupi restaurants that have opened up. Nothing against them, not to have any undertones of sorts, but those foods were almost unheard of back then. It was mostly Irani chai joints that used to be in vogue. The dosa idli, they're seen as quote-unquote implants of the Telugu-speaking portion from the Madras presidency. So the mulki agitation had been happening. A lot of people from the Madras presidency were taking government jobs. The Telangana Telugus who had been disenfranchised under the Nizams, they thought that the Andhrites were their linguistic and religious co-brethren who would empower them, but that's not exactly what happened. Ultimately, they saw these new people, these new migrants from Andhra as neo-colonizers. And the Kottagudem project, the power plant, which I'm sure you know about, sir, Telanganites were not being taken as the white-collar workers. They're basically taken as the class 4 workers. Representation tha hi nahi un logon mein. Hence, the early clamors for a Telangana state, which then led to a full-fledged agitation in 1969. Marichanna Reddy, led by Marichanna Reddy, as you said. But we all know Marichanna Reddy. Let's just put it this way, he had a change of heart. He had a change of heart as to why he didn't continue to pursue the cause. And cause became dormant. And then in the late 2000s, KCR reignited the Telangana struggle. This is where it became more of a full-fledged mass movement. 69 mein jo tha, it was more of an employment rights-based struggle, which is why it didn't necessarily percolate down all the way to the mid and lower sections of society, as much as it did in the 2000s. Aur ab 2014 mein, state bhi form hua, but what else also came? Achhe din, if anybody knows what I mean. But as we know, history is not a collection of forgotten dates. It's the experience of those who shaped it, which is why micro-histories are very important. And that's what I set out to do with my book. Ye jo chapters of history jo previous slide mein aapko dikhaya tha na, ultimately I wanted to show logon pe kya guzri iske upar. Because we always hear statesman-centric accounts of what happened. Even A.G. Noorani's book, which I quoted, ultimately it's seen through the lens of Qasim Razvi, the Nizam, Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru. Well, while we should study history through the eyes of people in power, ultimately history is also experienced by those who face the consequences, good and bad. Before I go on to introducing those people a bit, anybody know what this building is? Huh? Bachelor's quarters, that's it. Thank you. So ये bachelor's quarters जो है, this was NGO. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is where K.R. Amos, the leader of the employment-based struggle, and Swaminathan Sahib bhi yahin the. Exactly. K.R. Amos. Exactly. So everybody likes to, जब हैदराबाद के बारे में सोचते, they think Charminar, they think Chau Mohalla Palace, Falakhnuma. Again, nothing against that, but this building tells the story of Hyderabad and its people. क्योंकि Nizam के time में, this was where a lot of underprivileged students from the districts of Hyderabad were housed. Students who came to study at City College, Osmania. इन लोगों के dorms रहते थे यहाँ पे. But 48 हुआ, this building gained another character. It became a big hub for leftists. Telangana non-gazetted officers union was there as well. And a lot of Mazahiya shairs, Dakkani Mazahiya shairs, the humor poets. So this is where a lot of artists and leftists gathered. And these were the leftists and artists who taught people how to enjoy the freedom that came about in 1947. 48 se leke 52 tak, you had the military coming into Hyderabad, not just in the districts of Marathwada and Hyderabad, Karnataka, but the Telangana districts. So a lot of violence and upheaval took place, which is why Hyderabadis couldn't enjoy the freedom. And it's the artists, whether it was their patriotic poems, anthems, or just humor poems, it taught people how to laugh. When I did an article for this, for Mint Lounge, Sajjad Shahid gave me a great quote. He said कि रोने के लिए हम लोगों के पास आंसू नहीं थे, हंसना सिखाए ये bachelor's quarters के मस्खरे. And down the street from the bachelor's quarters is the office of a newspaper, which is still up and running and thriving, I would say, called Siyasat, Roznama-e-Siyasat. I'm sure people know, some of the older folks know who these people are on screen. ये है महबूब हुसैन जिगर साहब, ये है आबिद अली खान, the founders of Roznama-e-Siyasat. And their two kids, the late Zahir Ali Khan, Zahid Ali Khan, and the person who's at the helm of Siyasat, Amir Ali Khan. So Siyasat was a part of this mission to, help rehabilitate the Muslims and just the overall population of Hyderabad. Because Abid Ali Khan and Mehboob Hussain Jigar's goal was to for Siyasat was to have the newspaper act as a bridge between disenchanted Muslims and the new Indian government, because there was a big exodus of Muslims from Pakistan. And that story from how the newspaper has evolved, that was probably one of the most rewarding parts of doing this book. Any Maulana Azad National Urdu University students here? There you go. ये आपके सदर थे, यूनियन के साबिक सदर थे एक ज़माने में. So Umar Farooq Khadri, he has an interesting story. His chapter is titled From Jagirdar to Jamati. The first time I met him, Maulana Azad National University, mostly it's kids from Andhra, North India, Jammu Kashmir. पहली बार एक दक्कनी accent सुनाई दिया यहाँ पे. And then he told me कि हमारे दादी जो थे जागीरदार खानदान के थे लातूर बामिनी में, which is in Marathwada. रातों रात निकले, गरीब की ज़िंदगी बसर करे. And it was basically the Jamaat-e-Islami that helped them rehabilitate them financially, socially. So this was an interesting chapter as well. And he went on to, during the 2019 anti-CAA NRC protest, he was a big figure there. So from having, 2 generations ago, family experienced violence. The 3rd generation is speaking up against it. This is a photo of my grandfather. He was a doctor in the Nizam's army. So it's kind of like a Narcos-like story, if anybody knows that show. Indian Army stormed the camp where he was a doctor at, the military base, killed all the line mein jama karke, sabko mare. He pretended that a bullet hit him, but instead he faked his death for about 5-6 hours, crawled out of a heap, and then made it back. And then his son, my father, he was a part of the not exodus, but the wave of professionals from Hyderabad who went to the Gulf and really helped Muslims revive themselves. Because the government jobs and the landed income that came easy to Muslims finished. Rato Rat, 48 ke baad. Before I get to the next one, who knows what these two buildings, it's the same building, different eras. Who knows what this is? Aiwan Urdu, Idara Adbiyat Urdu. Anybody know who the founders of this was? Where? Zor Saab. Very good. That's him, right here. Zor Saab. And one of his co-founders was Abdul Qadir Sarwari. Rato Rat, it wasn't just the landed income and the government jobs that went. Urdu was also a major casualty of police action. 40s, 50s mein slowly court se Urdu hatai ja rahi thi. And like I said, siyasat was also an endeavor to ensure that Urdu also stays alive. But these two, they knew that they couldn't ply their craft here. Instead, they ended up going to Jammu and Kashmir. And जो शोबा उर्दू था कश्मीर में, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कश्मीर है. Anybody from Kashmir here? Again. तो ये दोनों तश्कील दिए थे उसको. It's because of these two Kashmiri writers like Hamidi Kashmiri, Vaishi Saeed, who are household names in the Urdu literary world of Kashmir. These two are the ones who groomed such talent. Either their kids are here or most of them are abroad now, and their subsequent generations they don't have much touch with Urdu anymore, unfortunately. I'm sure people know this person here as well. That's it, Mir Ayub Ali Khan. So, post 48, Hyderabad mein kya ho raha tha? Not only was Urdu and the subsistence of Muslims at stake, but just the overall pre-1948 history. Qutub Shahi, Asaf Jahi. It was discourse mein uske liye zyada room nahi tha. A lot of English newspapers, they were shedding this history slowly. But Mir Ayub Ali Khan, also a part of that wave of professionals that went to Saudi Arabia, but he didn't go as an electrician or as an engineer. He went as a journalist. As it is, whether it's back then or today, journalism is not a profession which people consider stable. Yet, he made the plunge. Worked for Saudi Gazette, interviewed some very interesting people. Anybody who is to be reckoned with in the world of geopolitics, from Afghanistan to Europe, chances are he interviewed them. But when he got back to Hyderabad, when he did a story on the jewels of the Nizam coming back to Purani Haveli. And ever since then, Hyderabad's heritage has featured prominently in English newspapers. A lot of work that heritage folks like, whether it's me, Yunus Lasagna, Haseeb Jafri, even the Deccan Archives people who are out there. I think we owe a great deal to Mir Ayub Ali Khan for bringing this discourse back. Anybody know what this is? Or where this is actually? Dono. Pakistan. Who said Pakistan? Yes. Ye Karachi ka Char Minar hai. Bahadurabad area ek hai. And Bahadurabad, it's named after Bahadur Yar Jang. Just like Bahadurpura in Old City is named after Bahadur Yar Jang. So, वहाँ के हैदराबादियाँ जो migrate हुए थे वहाँ पे 48 के बाद, they had this built. So, also, anybody know what this ceremony is right here? Bismillah, there you go. So even Pakistan, Hyderabadis that migrated to Pakistan, 60s, 70s tak Bismillah karte the wahan pe. And this I found out through Ali Adil Khan. He is a Hyderabadi Pakistani. From his father's side, Mir Lai Khali, jo aakhri Sadr-e-Azam the, unki family se the wo. So, I'm sure the person who said Pakistan, aapke bhi family members honge na Karachi mein. So chances are a lot of Hyderabadi Muslims, they have family members in Karachi. So if you want to know more about that little diaspora of Hyderabadis in Karachi, chapter 6 in the book is the way to go. Anybody know who this is? No? Yes. Are you guys students? Were you ever a student? There, ex-student. So Ramaiah Sab, in the Gudur district of Telangana, so Telangana Brahmin family, revenue agents the unke families, unke family members, very much a part of the system of feudalism, but he rebelled against it. He took to the onset of Marxism and mathematics. Mathematics was his way of, helping helping a lot of peasants understand how these cunning landowners and agents, loan agents, took advantage of these peasants and usurped their land. And the story of Sheikh Bandagi, who people call the Mangal Pandey of Telangana, I only knew through him. So if anybody knows these stories from the Telangana districts, please have them published. We need more narratives like this. Anybody know these folks? Yes, Rao, yes. The Telangana and AP correspondent for Hindustan Times. Also from a family whose father took to the onset of communism. और इनके father जो है मखदूम मोइनुद्दीन के लिए courier थे. And not only that, the way his family also, they were foot soldiers for the Telangana movement in the 2000s. They attended the Sakala Janla Same and whatnot. And so this is ASR, his daughter Shruti, his mother Sampatamma. Sampatamma had an interesting story about how Hyderabad back then was not ridden with crime as it is today. And she had some interesting anecdotes about how generous the Nizam was. There you go. Thank you. I love having enthusiastic participants. So Raj Bahadur Gaur Sahab, another one of those people who took to the onset of Marxism. Usmania University ke Comrades Union jo the. So these were a bunch of, well-off kids who studied at Usmania and were being exposed to communist ideals. And they shed their privilege. And they had quite the action hero type stories of, escaping from the Nizam's police, the Indian authorities. And he was also a frequenter of the bachelor's quarters. Bachelor's quarters bahut jate the, and was a warrior for Urdu as well. Lastly, ye hai Narayan Raj Saxena. And one question which I asked him, do you feel like history has been tough on the Nizam? He replied with this couplet, ye jabar bhi dekha hai tarikh ki nazron ne, lamhon ne khata ki thi, sadiyon ne saza pai. And the mistakes of moments he was referring to is when he felt that Qasim Razvi was given undue बहुत ज़्यादा छूट दे दिए थे निज़ाम क़ासिम रज़वी को, हालांकि he could have destroyed him as well. He also felt that the Nizam, whether he was helpless in the face of Qasim Razvi's antics or whether he directly patronized them, he felt that Razvi should have been done away with. A lot of tragedies could have been avoided. And I'll be here for an hour-ish, autographing books if anybody has them. So thank you, and if anybody has any questions, please do let me know. Ji. Alam Khud Miri. It's funny that you mention Alam Khud Miri, because where I train for a little mixed martial arts training, Alam Khud Miri ke grandnephew mile mere ko. So it's funny that you mentioned that. But Alam Khud Miri ka photo kitab mein hai. And ultimately, these are wo bhi bade log the at the end of the day. Alam Khud Miri Saab, Makhdoom Moinuddin Saab. These were people who had a lot of interaction with them. Raj Bahadur Gaur to are Makhdoom ke ird-gird rehte the. ASR's father was a murid of Makhdoom. To ये सब के है, किताब में है लेकिन presentation में नहीं है बस.
Okay, so maybe the conversation can be carried outside. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Daneesh, Majid, for this fascinating overview of the history of Hyderabad post-independence. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.